All right, and then good evening, everyone. We'll just let everyone file in as we just opened up the webinar. Looking forward to tonight. Well, we're very happy that everyone's here with us tonight. My name is Michelle Lanteri. I'm the Curator of Collections and Exhibitions at the Millicent Rogers Museum in Taos, New Mexico. I first want to honor the Tiwa people on whose land we stand. Really grateful to be able to host these programs for the IAIA exhibition and also host the exhibition here at the museum. This series is called Curated Conversations. And it takes place in partnership with the current exhibition here at the museum. The exhibition is called New Mexico Air, IAIA Artist Residence in Visual Dialogue. And we've actually reached almost the last week of it being on display here. So if you're in town or you want to make the trip to Taos, I definitely highly recommend it. The last day of the exhibition will be January 29th, which is a Saturday. So we've been really lucky and excited to work with 10 amazing artists for this exhibition who've participated in the artist residency program with the Institute of American Indian Arts. And the people that we've been working with are based in New Mexico. So that's been our focus for the past several months now. The exhibition is also part of the museum's New Mexico Artists Series, which we just launched in 2021. So the exhibition's been focusing on places of home, identity construction, also cross-cultural exchanges. And so these programs that we're hosting on Zoom also, work with those focus areas. We're really thinking about intersections and conversations, just to talk about some of the concepts that the artists are using and kind of where different concepts meet up. So the co-curator for the exhibition is Dawning Paulin Shorty. She's of Taos Pueblo, Diné, and Lakota heritage. And so she's a figurative artist who works in micaceous clay. She's also an IAIA alumna from the Museum Studies program. And she's currently an arts educator at Vista Grande High School here in Taos. So I want to express a lot of gratitude to her for co-curating this exhibition with us. And now I'll introduce our two artists here tonight. So Cara Romero is a contemporary fine art photographer based in Santa Fe. She's an enrolled citizen of the Chemehuevi Indian tribe. And Romero was raised between contrasting settings, the rural Chemehuevi Reservation and the Mojave Desert in California, and also the urban sprawl of Houston, Texas. Romero's identity informs her photography, a blend of fine art and editorial photography, shaped by years of study and a visceral approach to representing Indigenous and non-Indigenous cultural memory, collective history, and lived experiences from a Native American female perspective. Since 1998, Romero's expansive oeuvre has been informed by formal training in film, digital, fine art, and commercial photography. By staging theatrical compositions infused with dramatic color, Romero takes on the role of storyteller, using contemporary photography techniques to depict the modernity of Native peoples, illuminating Indigenous worldviews and aspects of supernaturalism in everyday life. Welcome, Cara.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the Artists in Residency program and the Millicent Rogers Museum. It's an honor to be here with both you and with Orlando. And I am calling in from Santa Fe, the land of the Tewa, Tiwa, Towa, and Cara speaking peoples. Such an honor to be here this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. Orlando Dugi is a Diné fashion designer also based in Santa Fe. He draws inspiration from his childhood memories of stargazing in the desert of northern Arizona while spending summer vacations on his paternal grandparents' sheep ranch. The stars hold deep meaning to the Diné people, songs and prayers passed down through generations of astronomical knowledge. This, coupled with the phrase, walk in beauty, is a way of being in harmony with all that's around you, a state of grace. This is the artist's foundation for his work. He is committed to making ornamented garments made by hand that have always been part of Navajo culture. Dugi is committed to continuing these traditions and sharing them with women through fashion. Thank you so much for being here, Orlando. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Yat eto hehe to you, Michelle, and the Millicent Rogers Museum and the Artist in Residency program from IIA. Thank you. And hello to Cara as well, and sending out some good wishes, I guess, to Wayne Gasson and their family, the Gasson family. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here with us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you. So let me go ahead and get some graphics going so we can first talk about some of the works in the exhibition. Okay. And we're very grateful to the Institute of American Indian Arts and New Mexico Arts for their support of both the exhibition and the Zoom programs and all of the associated programs that we've been able to do. Okay, so let's see. All right. So here are two works that are in the exhibition, both very striking pieces. And so I was hoping that we could just kind of start off with both of you talking about these works and your concepts kind of leading up to their final form, and maybe even, you know, how they've kind of moved in different exhibitions. Cara, would you like to start with your work?
So the piece that everyone is looking at on the left is called Hermosa, and it was captured during a 3-month residency in the Los Angeles area on Hermosa Beach. So it was in one part a homecoming to the place that I was born. And Los Angeles is also a place of creation for many Southern California tribes. Underneath that industrial empire is a holy place. I was commissioned by the Indian Collective in 2021 to create a billboard series, a public art series to bring critical visibility to Southern California tribes and peoples. And so while I was there, I worked with the local Tongva Nation, sometimes called Gabrielino or Keech Nation as well, to create that billboard series, and then simultaneously made work with my daughter and with my best friend because we were working in quarantine. And so in order to get through that part of the pandemic, I took my whole pod with me out to the Los Angeles area, and my daughter and I worked together intensely for about a month with the incredible artistry of Leah Matafrawa, who is a celebrated regalia maker of coastal peoples in California. So Cricket is wearing the regalia of Southern California coastal tribes with a cottonwood bark skirt, a belt, and then of course shells from the area. We went out onto the beach doing a study day after day, and this wave came up and crashed during one of our shoots prior to her even being able to react. And I was using strobe lights and was able to capture everything. So this piece is near and dear to heart, and that's evokes a sense of Chemehuevi creation mythos. We come from this area, and our creator is Great Ocean Woman.
Thank you. And could you talk a little bit about the black and white, choosing that aesthetic for this image?
I typically work with color last in my process, and I just felt that it was really strong and really just, you know, brought a sense, an emotional sense to the piece that I loved.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with everyone. And Orlando, can you tell us about the concepts that you were working with for the Alice dress and kind of, you know, how you've seen it move through different places?
Yeah, so this is part of a collection that I did last year. And this dress was actually in the works for maybe 2.5 years, working on it off and on. There's a lot of beading and on this dress. And so toward the end of the why I named it the Alice dress is, you know, we're all in finishing this collection the summer of last year. We're in the, you know, in the worst part of, I guess I wouldn't say worst, but you know, one of the heaviest parts of the pandemic. And you know, we're just I was missing home and missing you know, my family and everything. And I live 6-7 hours away from Gray Mountain, Arizona, which is just north of Flagstaff, about 40 miles. And so I'm missing my family, my grandparents, my grandmother, my paternal grandparents. And so I thought maybe I've never really named my garments or, you know, title them. It's usually like spring, summer 20, whatever, look 2 or something. It's so much work trying to name everything every time. So that's usually the process I go with. But this time I named this dress after my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother. Her name is Alice. And I named a couple of other dresses after other grandmothers in my family, because in Navajo, we have our, you know, immediate grandparents, our maternal and paternal, and then we have their siblings are also our grandparents. And then, in any case, the inspiration for this actually comes from my childhood, like you stated in my description. I spent a lot of time with my paternal grandparents, their sheep ranch, and we used to go to ceremonies. And so this is how I was introduced into Navajo, you know, deep into Navajo ceremony and culture. And I haven't really done anything with that before. And when I started designing clothes 11 years ago now, or 10 years ago, and I really wasn't quite sure how to incorporate everything that, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do, you know, how I was going to go about doing things. But what I really take from my childhood growing up in those ceremonies is the extravagance and the layers of things that are done and things that are happening. From like sand paintings, for instance, just one part, there's the paraphernalia, there's the people who are dressed in some really beautiful clothing, and then you have the songs, the prayers, and so they're just several layers going on all at once in this hogan in the middle of the night, usually. And but so one of the things that I like to play with is transparency, and that kind of comes from my a crystal gazing ceremony. I don't really like to go to a lot of depth about it, but it's about using moonlight, starlight to shine a light through the crystal, and through the songs and prayers, it reveals things to the medicine man. And I guess it was like, sort of like diagnoses your ailments or whatever is bothering you. And so with that, I like to play a lot with sheer fabrics. I remember, and so this dress is made of tulle fabric, and then the beading is done on tulle as well, and so it's very see-through. And the beading, the inspiration for the beading comes from Mother Earth and Father Sky. And so you see on her shoulders, it has black beads, which represents the stars, and there's a universe. And then down below is all flowers, and which represents the earth. And so we see from her the hip area that goes up, and it starts to kind of disappear and then go into the night sky. And so that's what the inspiration for the dress came about.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And it does seem, too, seeing these works side by side, and Orlando, hearing you talk more about your Alice dress, that there's these connections to place, that there's, these references to the cosmos too. So it's really exciting to see your works in direct dialogue like this, to kind of show some more parallels between them.
Yeah, so I really love seeing the Cara Hermosa image. I mean, it's such a beautiful image. It's so powerful, and it's such a beautiful image.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. And so I'm gonna move us to the next slide here. So Cara, I was wondering if you could talk further about relationships to place in both of these works that are in the exhibition here at the museum.
Relationship to place, I think I would go back to what I said during my first comment, in that I think the forgotten things in American history discourse is that many of the industrial empires and the big cities that we know of today, we don't think of as Indigenous lands. A lot of them we think of in these rural areas that are still pristine, but Los Angeles and many of the other big cities, including Las Vegas, where I'm from, are built on holy places. And Los Angeles is no different. It is, absolutely a place of creation for Southern California peoples. And the history there in California is one of the most brutal colonial histories in the United States, with multiple waves of, genocidal colonialism coming in from the Spanish and the Mexican, and then the gold rush of the mid 1800s. All of that to really bring us to the image on the right, Oil and Gold, was a story that I wanted to tell, having spent time out there with people that are Tongva descendants, and really knowing the history of California. I'm from a federally recognized tribe, but it's very common knowledge in California that so many of the tribes were never federally recognized, particularly in the state of California, as part of that really sad US history. And you think about these things as a Native person, but until you really go sit with the community and learn and talk story, it kind of breaks your heart all over again. And the 19 tribes along the coast of California never received their federal recognition when the other tribes did, because not because of the federal government, but actually because the state senators hid the treaties and never ratified them. And it was by no coincidence that these were areas that were rich in gold and oil. And so while we were out there, taking these beautiful photographs along the beach, it was really important for me to try to tell the story of the displacement and the pain of non-federally recognized coastal tribes that don't have land base and don't have access, and really have a very painful story. It's hard to describe. but displaced for, industry, which is an age-old story in the United States, from the gold in the Black Hills to hydroelectric energy flooding out tribes to the largest solar grab in the Mojave Desert. This is another one of those environmental racism stories that displace the indigenous peoples of the U.S. So this is taken in El Segundo in front of a Chevron refinery across the street because we were run off the property trying to take the photograph. Leah Mata Frawa again helped me. We all work together on the regalia. One is dipped in oil and the other is dipped in gold.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of that too. And I did want to point out too that these two images that are in the exhibition, that they have a matte finish on them and there's no glass or plexiglass. So when you're in the galleries, these pieces, there's such a direct connection, to anyone that spends some time with them. And, you really start thinking more deeply about each one of these and the stories that they're telling and these histories, these very conflicted histories that are being shared. And especially in oil and gold, I think, what you've done here with capturing the light, kind of in these different areas, and it always points back to the figures. I think, your composition kind of continues to kind of bring, a viewer's eye back to the figures to kind of consider like, how these different parts are working. I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little more about how you landed on the gold on their hands and the oil on their hands and also on their skirts.
What was really in conversation, the pieces that I make are highly collaborative. So there's a lot of involvement with the models and, oftentimes it becomes intergenerational, like with their moms, because we're seeking, cultural approvals and making sure that we're telling stories appropriately on behalf of families. And then, we're also representing communities. And we definitely wanted it to come through this story of oil and gold. And we really, so many of my pieces are a group of, friends and family playing with our imagination and figuring out how we're going to tell a story. And my niece was, gold leafing the shells and we're, falling in love with it. And, we're hand painting the shirts and, coming up with more ideas in that part of the creative flow. So it was a group effort to put these outfits together. And it was, very hands-on with all 5 of us that were working on the project.
Thank you. And Orlando, I was wondering also, if you'd like to talk more about these 2 works in the exhibition, maybe more about the process and concepts of the Red Collection work that's here on the left.
Yeah, this one is titled Red Collection, and for a while there, and here in Santa Fe, I was working at a gallery on Canyon Road, and being Navajo, I thought I knew a thing or two about Navajo textiles, but when seeing all the just because of growing up with and around weaving, but there's a period when cochineal was used. Well, it kind of goes a lot further back than that, back to the Aztec and Inca. The Inca period actually is when they had cochineal farms, and when the Spaniards showed up, they somehow stole some beetles and took them back to Spain, and started cultivating their own cochineal farms, and pretty soon red spread all over the world. I mean, like the cochineal red, there was already different kinds of red that were available, but the cochineal beetle, the red is derived from the female beetle. And you can get some really, really bright reds, really deep reds, and you can get anywhere from blush pink to black just by adding different additives. And so I really love that concept of Navajo people taking bayeta cloth from Italy, which was dyed in cochineal, and unraveling it and spinning it into yarn to weave into wearing robes or dresses. And so that little line of red, or maybe the designs are in red of these old dresses of Navajo people. And so I liked the red, and then I had this idea of, you know, with all the ruins here in the old villages here in the Southwest, like the really large one here in New Mexico. Oh gosh, I can't forget. I remember the name right now. But Chaco Canyon, yes, thank you. Mm-hmm. And so I imagine these like large cities, and they were, you know, they were women who were in charge, and so it's a matriarch. Well, matriarchal is kind of, it's supposed to be both, but like the society run by women. And the women wore red dresses, you know, super elaborate, and it's really kind of cool because Cara's work with the gold hands. This is something that I had in mind with these dresses is for an editorial shoot. It's a lot of times I think about things as an editorial, and then my collection kind of comes out from that. And so my idea was to have these women, like, you know, several women dressing in these elaborate red gowns. I mean, like, all these dresses are dyed in cochineal, by the way. So like her hands were going to be dipped in gold, you know, so she'd be wearing gold, and it would sort of be like makeup in a way, but just extravagance is what I was going for, but also like dipping its fingertips in red with the gold. And so these are the kind of images that pop into my head when I start thinking about what I'm going to do with the collection. And so these cities in the middle of the desert, you know, they rely a lot on water. And so there was, I forget the time period of Pueblo pottery. And a lot of the symbols on the pottery have to do with water in some way. And so I wanted to incorporate just sort of my versions of what we all pray for you know, out here for our crops, for living, for life. And then also there's this mythical bird that they sort of believe in. And so I'm thinking about this whole civilization in my mind for this red collection. And I only produced like just 5 pieces, I believe, for this collection, but they're all hand beaded, hand embroidered, hand dyed. Sometimes there's a commercially red dyed fabric that it's overlaid on top of just to create a different effect with when the fabric moves. And so yeah, that's kind of how this collection for the red collection came about.
Thank you. And we do have a question of what the fiber of the fabric is in your red collection dress.
They're silk. This one right here is a silk organza. The beading and embroidery is done on silk organza. And then I believe across the bodice, it's lined with a silk charmeuse, if I remember right.
Thank you. And also, you know, while we're looking at these two works together too, Orlando, I was wondering if you could talk somewhat about pose, you know, about, you you know, the way that these women wear these dresses, and kind of how you consider that, you know, in your process, and then, you know, once the works are complete.
A lot of times, this is one of the things that is really, I guess, gratifying, is that right word? Or satisfying is, as a designer, I think, for me anyway, it's the, when a model tries on a dress, or a girl or woman tries on a dress, she automatically changes her posture, you know. So if she likes the dress and she likes the way she looks in it, she automatically just kind of stands taller, you know, her shoulders are squared down, and she just has a different way of standing and walking and looking at herself, and, you know, walking in front of people. So it's them, it's not me that does it. You know, I make the dress in hopes that it makes someone feel good. And so when it comes to these two images, I wasn't there when it was being taken. So it's completely up to the model how she wants to pose. And I usually tell the women who walk for me that I ask them first and foremost if they're comfortable. Are they okay wearing the dress? Are they okay with it? You know, so, because I don't want to force somebody to wear a see-through dress if they're not comfortable wearing it, or maybe that cut doesn't quite flatter a certain part of their body that they don't like. And I just want them to be comfortable when they're wearing it, even though they're just wearing it for the 7 minutes on the runway, you know. Well, in some cases they're like 30 seconds down, up and down. Anyway, but for me, I think it's the person who's wearing the dress is who decides how the pose should be, because they're ultimately the one in it. You know, it's touching their body. It's it's making them feel whatever they're putting out in the photograph.
Yeah, thank you. And so I thought we'd also look at some of your work, both of you, from some earlier years. And I'm just wondering, Cara, if you would like to also address pose, you know, how you're working with your collaborators, and how that comes in kind of during the process.
Well, to just add on to what Orlando was saying, you know, there are models that are just tremendously gifted also. And, you know, I work with both. I love to find beauty within our own community that we know exists. Like, you know, just incredible beauty that doesn't always get the visibility in the outside world, and kind of, you know, elevating that through the language of photography. Pose is so important. And I love looking at Orlando's pieces because they are so feminine. And I love hearing you talk about making the person feel good, because I think also that is something that we do within our community, is making sure that the person is feeling good. And I think that might be unique to how we work with each other, that there's consent and collaboration and cooperation and making people feel beautiful. For me, that feels like it comes from a very maternal place when I work with my models. And I think two things. I think you can look at photographs, one, and say, okay, that was done by a non-native person, or I can tell that was done by a native person. Maybe that's true with all of our art. And then I think with photography, you can also tell, like, that was done by a woman, or somebody with, you know, a maternal or feminine care, or that was done with male energy, you know, male energy taking the photograph. So pose for me is typically, you know, building a larger than life feeling for the person. And like Orlando, they're very editorial. So if you go through my portfolio, you'll see that they're named after the woman. They're not named, you know, Santa Clara woman or Hopi woman or Diné woman. They're named Ka, and they're named Thai because the images are very much, the poses are also representative of who they are, you know, working in collaboration with them. And nobody could make the Ka photo except for Ka, you know, and same with Thai and Nikki and Naomi, and, you know, the list goes on. So I tend to shoot a lot because I don't feel like tied to working with only like super gifted professional models. So a lot of times I will work with my friends, and that takes a lot of work to just make sure that they're, you know, so happy with the way it renders on film or on digital at the end of the day. So it's not uncommon for me to shoot hundreds and hundreds of photographs, and we pick the one.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thanks. Yeah, I can picture it now. Yeah, just looking through. Wow. And would you like to tell us a little more about these two images, the concepts for both?
Sure. So the one on the left, Ka, was inspired by a piece that appeared in a First American Art magazine written by Rosemary Diaz about my husband, Diego, and the mythos of clay woman, the deity of the clay here in the Southwest. And it resonated with me so much because we have, it was one of those things that you find intertribally of, oh, we have that story, you know, or, oh, there's something similar that in our mythos or in our star stories, that sort of thing. And it was this beautiful, the article started out with this just beautiful anecdote that Rosemary wrote about clay woman and how she was subtle and inviting and found the world over. But when you went to fire her, no man could ever master her. And I thought, oh, wow, like, isn't that how we feel about ourselves? And so I really wanted to photograph a contemporary ceramic woman artist and show how the spirit of clay woman, or how our mythos in general, is passed down through thousands of years. And I'm particularly excited about ideas where we can kind of manifest these stories in contemporary times, and we can be contemporary people, and the mythos comes through time, you know, like just as strong. And so this is Ka. We photographed her hair at 1/8,000th of a second. So we've captured motion through a special technique. And then in what I call photo illustration or use of Photoshop, I've overlaid a second photograph on her skin in what's called a soft overlay of a Mesa Verde vessel. So we went back a little bit further to our common ancestry, ancestral Puebloan, and we chose something from a long time ago. And she's painted in clay from my reservation, a place called Chalk Cliffs. And we shot over 2 days, and this was the one. Like Hermosa, right? You know, you see these ones and you're just like, you know, and I think that happens with art when we make space for it. And then the one on the right is Thai. I believe it was done in 2017 with, I was working with the Native Art and Cultures Foundation with the Mentor Fellowship, and I had an apprentice at the time, Leah Kolakowski, who's an emerging photographer from Kinawa Bay, Ojibwe. And we were working on this idea of editorial and content in a portrait, and in contemporary Native photography, what kind of stories are we trying to tell? And in this one, we really wanted to tell a story of Thai. And so there's, you know, an interview process with each of these people that I photograph, you know, where maybe I have an idea, but like, let's expand on it and make it about you. And like, let's bring in some ideas. And so I do some sketches, and, you know, we kind of agree on some concepts, and this is important. And for Ty, her mythos of white shell woman was really important to her. And I had drawn out these, you know, 4-directional symbols that show up in Diné, you know, all through the Southwest. They're such powerful symbols, and she really liked that. And so I won't be too much longer. Sorry, Orlando.
Oh, no.
I began to think about white shell women, and I began to think about Chemehuevis as the desert traders, and about how the tribes from the Southwest got their shells and their feathers were through these, you know, really intricate networks that were once, you know, probably, you know, incredibly enlivened. And so we thought, let's enliven them. So I called Liamata, who had married into the Pueblo, and I said, do you have any olivella shells? And she's like, as a matter of fact, I've been collecting them for 10 years. And so Leah and I sat down, and we kind of like fascinated on these old trade routes of her being Chumash and me being Chemehuevi and Ty being Diné. And we sat down and we cleaned, you know, we drilled and cleaned, you know, hundreds of olivella shells and strung them around Ty's neck. And then I went into the Shiprock Gallery, and I had asked to borrow an antique blanket for the shoot. And there was this one that looked just like the drawing. And they were like, are you sure you don't want to look around some more? And I was like, no, I found it. It was within just like a minute. So the blanket is from the 1920s, and that's the story of Ty.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Wow. And we do have another question here. So the question is, I think for either of you who'd like to answer, when choosing fashion models, do either of you work with elders or those who are non-binary, two-spirit, or diverse body types? Orlando, do you want to go first?
Well, I usually don't. I think a lot of my designs are like the sizes that I use are based on my dress forms that I have, because I drape everything. But I don't have a preference for anything. I just, as long as the model works for the garment, then that's how it goes. A lot of what I do is also very custom, and if I was to make spend, I mean, some of the dresses can range from several weeks to several months to you know, a year, 2 years in the making before it's done. And if I do a specific size for someone, you know, it would be hard to sell it to someone, or, you know, so it's kind of a very difficult, I guess, process to find people to wear the clothes. I mean, like I said, a lot of times they're only worn on the runway one time, and then they're just sitting here in a box, and or sitting at a museum for an exhibition. But for me, I don't have a preference, and I get a lot of, like, especially when I show for Swaya's fashion show, I get a little flack for not having native models, like every model being native. But my thing is that the clothes I make are for women, for all women. It doesn't matter where they come from, what their skin color is. It's if they feel like that's a garment that they would like to wear, then that's what they'll wear. And I just never had the chance to work with, you know, I guess non-binary. I have had inquiries. It's just everything takes a lot of time. So I don't know. Some people think that I put out dresses like every week or something. And so it's a little, you know, it's a very slow process, and things happen, how they work in time. But I'm always open. I'm a very open person. I like to work with a lot of people. I feed off of their I think they're positive energy. If someone has sort of a, you don't feel right about it, then I don't work with that person. No matter how beautiful somebody is, when you have like someone bad to you, or just kind of puts out that bad energy, you just don't want to work with them. Like when I say beautiful, it's like they're like, you both, like their physical beauty, and then they're just they lack something on the inside, and you just kind of don't want to work with them. And I don't know, like I said, I'm pretty open to everything. I don't know if that really answers the question. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it does. I think just to kind of reinforce what Orlando was saying, I do think for me, I don't always choose my models. A lot of times it's far more relational. And I love it when people say, will you photograph my daughter? Or will you photograph me again? And I end up working with the same group of people over and over and over, almost like a repertory. So like my theater of actors, become different characters and tell different stories. I have not done a lot of work with elders in more recent decades, and I think that's because I'm not back home. I'm in Santa Fe, and so I think that working intertribally in Santa Fe is a whole nother conversation about willingness and the whole concept of photography here in the Southwest. There are just certain things intertribally that you don't photograph. And so I think that there's some sensitivity there. I think also a lot of my pieces are autobiographical. So I tend to tell a lot of stories of women, of strong women. And so I am absolutely open to telling more stories of non-binary and two-spirit when those stories come into my life, and when those people come into my life and they're like, I want to be photographed. And that for me is kind of a truth of who I am. Truth be, I'm actually very shy. And so I don't go out choosing models. It's like really comes from a close inner circle, and still from a very shy place of, will you work with me on this? I did just finish a shoot with two-spirit and non-binary, and a pregnant mom. And so that's kind of exciting if people are looking for that to show up for my work. I guess the answer would be yes, and hope to do more.
Yeah, thank you. And great question too. And so Orlando, I wanted to ask if you'd like to talk more about these works so we can get to know a bit more about your background and some of the different styles that you are incorporating into your practice.
Okay, let's see. I guess we'll start with the dress on the far left on the screen. The gray dress. This was part of my 2019 Phoenix Fashion Week runway collection I presented there. This collection was both on the two dresses on either side. They're both in the same collection. This one was based on, like, the inspiration came from, back home in Arizona, there's this area called the Blue Hills, and they're volcanic ash hills. They're really beautiful. They have all these little different layers of color, and it's all volcanic ash. and they're just round, and like a lot of people run their motorcycles and ATVs up it and down it, and so they kind of messed it up the way it looks. I can't already say too much about that because my family's part of the ones destroying the look of it. But anyway, it's so beautiful to see. The colors, they're green, like gray, blue, gray. And then where Gray Mountain is situated in the Cameron, it's kind of sort of in a valley, but then it opens up towards, if you're going north, to the left is the Grand Canyon. And so if you follow the Little Colorado River Gorge, and you'll run right into the Grand Canyon, and they kind of merge, right? And but when you look across the valley, across in the mesas on the east side of the valley, it's sort of like the Painted Desert. If you ever seen images of the Painted Desert, they have all these different colors. And then, so those colors from the Blue Hills and from the mesas, and then, you know, cactus flowers. What are they called? I forgot the name of the cactus. Prickly pear cactus. Prickly pear. You know, when you're walking out in the you know, out in the desert, you'll come across the cactus, and you see these bright pink flowers where it's just like browns and reds, and the pinks just pop out at you. And sometimes they're yellow, and they're really bright golden yellow. And I'm using that same motif again for this collection, the inspiration of the yellow cactus flowers in this coming collection. But so those colors, that's where the color palette comes from, is from those the landscape inspiration and different flowers and plants in the Southwest. And so that's really kind of the base of the color palette. And like the one on the left there, it's I like to work a lot with some feathers, because, you know, feathers are used in ceremonies. They take and they got sort of, for me, they represent like the smoke from a pipe. When you smoke pipe or you burn cedar or sweetgrass, you know, you're praying, the smoke takes your prayers up to the holy people. And so sort of that's kind of why I like to use it, because the feathers represent the smoke in a way. And so those kinds of inspirations are very personal to me, so I don't really say a whole lot about it publicly, exactly where the inspiration comes from, because to some people maybe it might be offensive, I guess, taking something that's that personal to Diné people and putting it on a garment that is going to be worn by someone who's not Diné, you know. And so, but they're not direct representations of an actual ceremony. They're just the thoughts and the feelings that I feel from remembering those times. And so, and then the whole front of the bodice is beaded, and it carries down into the skirt. And it was really most, this design was just, the color palette again is based on what I told you before, but it's kind of like a party dress is what I was thinking for this dress, you know, just being able to move. So every time you somebody walks by you, the feathers move, you know. And so I just thought that there's constant movement and motion when you're wearing this dress. And then I really like pairing metal or metallics with my garments, because silver to me represents white corn, and then gold represents tadadin, which is corn pollen. And so and those are two things that we pray with in the morning and the evening. And so it's sort of like keeping within my traditional upbringing of how you're supposed to present yourself to the holy people in the morning and in the evening. And so that's another reason why I chose special occasion wear to design and evening wear, is because a lot of our ceremonies take place at night. And then during the day, you know, you're supposed to get up in the morning, you offer your corn in the morning, and then you dress and you offer your corn because you want to present yourself ready to receive blessings. And so that is another, you know, when I talk about layers, when I talk about my inspirations and when I talk about Navajo ceremonies and cultures, it's just, there's so many layers. And so when I talk about my work, it seems like I ramble on and on, but it's because there's so many layers that are thought of when I'm coming up with a garment or with a collection, because sometimes I only make one garment. It's not an entire collection, but that one garment has all these different things that are thought about and wished, I guess, into the garment. And so the one on the right with the purple feathers and the pink skirt, and then the pink part on the bodice is also dyed in cochineal. So, and it's hand pleated, and the feathers go across the upper part of the bust here, and then over the shoulders and across the back. And again, the colors are, you know, taken from the landscape and then from the flowers. And then also like prickly pear. I don't know if you've ever had prickly pear margaritas. That's the color it reminds me of, and so it's kind of fun. So I don't know. So again, so the color of like doing something every day, like going to the restaurant, a bar, and ordering a margarita that's brightly colored, and there's this orchid sitting on top, and the orchid's purple, and it's so beautiful to see, and you get to hold it and get to drink it, you know. So so that's kind of the ideas for these, but I like things to be elegant. I also like things that make things where they come in at the waist and flare out, or, you know, I don't like it to be, I just like elegance and opulence. And so a lot of it does come from the ceremonies, because when you dress up to go to these places, you wear your finest silk velvet blouse, nice dress skirt, and then you wear all this jewelry, and then you have your hair done and it's all nice and slick, and, you know, so, and you're wearing all this jewelry, and it's such a beautiful sight. So I always remember those kinds of things when I'm doing designs and things. And then one in the middle is from the red collection, and again, all dyed in cochineal. And then there's a golden, that mythical bird that this civilization that I made up sort of revered, and was like a protection symbol. And then right in this, so it curls around itself like this, so to do two birds, and then right in the center of it there's an embroidered floral plant, sort of to represent new growth, right? And so because we're wishing for all this rain, and so you get to see the fruits of that, the prayers and stuff that you've done. And then again on her belt, this is what I collaborated with a Zuni carver, who carved a buckle out of shell for me, and then I made the belt out of silver, I think, or was it gold? And that's how that came about. And so, and then I like to use a lot of crystals and beads to add sparkle. Again, that goes back to the stars. So it kind of just, that's sort of what it represents for me. So like, it's like laying a galaxy on your body in a way.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for all those layers of details. I think those are such important insights. And wow, the last thing you said, the galaxy on your body, that's very exciting. That's pretty amazing. And we are at the top of the hour here. So I do want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Orlando. Thank you, Cara, so much. You both really just did an amazing job talking more about your practices. I appreciate you being here and working with us on the project. So thank you everyone, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you so much for having us, Orlando. It was so nice to share time and space with you. Thank you, everybody that joined us as participants on the Zoom.
Thank you, Cara. It was very, very wonderful to speak with you. And Michelle, thank you. And everyone else who has joined as well.
Well, thank you all. Hope you'll be able to come see the exhibition if you haven't yet. It does close this coming Saturday. Well, have a great night, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.